of this could have been prevented if you only had given me some respect.
Save your breath, Starscream.
I tried to gain favor from you, but nothing was ever good enough. No matter how many battles I fought, you always found fault.
When Transformers Armada made its appearance in 2002, fans of the Transformers universe may have noticed something different about Starscream. The infamous Decepticon was all but loyal in the original show, often seen whining about Megatron, the leader of the Decepticons, being in command.
It's the old! The old! Too bad! He's blown his vocal components. I guess that makes me the new leader!
The easiest way to simplify his character was to call him a whiny, power-hungry child with jet engines. And for those of us that have seen Starscream in action, we know where such tantrums led him. However, in Transformers Armada, one of the many forms of theatrical experiences to tale the successes of Gen 1 presented us with a different Starscream. A Starscream that soon became my favorite Decepticon of all time. So who is he? I understand that Armada came out— Holy shoot, Armada came out 23 years ago! Still though, spoiler alert from here on out. Throughout the early episodes of Armada, there is very little, if any, dissension in Starscream's voice. We do not hear the constant threats he makes towards Megatron, hoping to one day be king.
Megatron! Are you alright? Are you alright?
Yes, I'm fine. Now go and destroy that obnoxious Optimus Prime.
Starscream is a soldier, clean and true, and soldiers are disciplined to trust their commanding officers, even with their lives. For a little while, we see a bot with fierce determination for his faction, fighting Autobots, searching for Minicons, and working hard to please Lord Megatron. Quick note, a Minicon is a smaller version of a Transformer in the show that the main plot revolves around. It's also important to note for the sake of today's story that the Minicons could combine to create some seriously dangerous weapons. The most important of these Minicon teams was the trio that made up the Starsaber, essentially the Transformers version of a lightsaber. But anyway, this variant of the treacherous bot is not treacherous at all. So what goes wrong?
Starscream is in detention as you requested, Megatron.
Very well.
Sir, I know that our mission failed, but why did you discipline him in such a harsh manner?
Because if anyone dares to defy my authority, they will get the same treatment.
Starting from episodes 3 and 4, we see the beginning of the spiral that eventually dooms the once proud Decepticon. Petty fights over who's getting the next Minicon and similar squabbles bring Starscream specifically into Megatron's eye. We see him reprimanded in episodes 3, 4, and 5 for being too eager to obtain a Minicon, and yet at the same time, being disciplined for not having one. It is the first time Starscream is screwed over.
I believe for the benefit of the Decepticons, it would be better for me to increase my power.
But you said the next Minicon that we find would be mine!
From this point on, there seems to be a negative tone whenever Megatron speaks to him, like he's offended by Starscream's existence. This tone is repeated throughout the entirety of the show, but where the divide seems to seriously widen is in episode 6, Jungle. Starscream's eagerness to obtain his partner Minicon and catch up to his comrades is understandable. To him, it's an obsession, because until that goal is achieved, he feels worthless to the team. It's as if his direct value is dependent on having a partner Minicon. I want to state that this is clearly a kid's show, and the dramatic nature of how Megatron treats his men in comparison to Optimus Prime is meant to be very black and white. But as we venture deeper, you will begin to see how this character blurs those two together. During episode 6, Starscream does manage to claim possession to his own Minicon.
It's mine! My very own Minicon!
And in doing so, disturbs the delicate balance of power in the Decepticon ranks, a power that Megatron will demand is his. Episode 6 is extremely important to the sub-story of Armada. I would go as far to say that maybe Megatron knew that Starscream was capable of such power prior to this episode.
Just what do you think you're doing, Starscream?
Let me show you my incredible power! Behold the now laser cannon!
Maybe he understood the potential that his lieutenant held and tried to casually gatekeep him, perhaps because of Megatron's own insecurities. He does after all look like a pincer from Pokemon, but from here, the dominoes of Starscream's loyalty will begin to crumble.
Look what I have done! My powers are awesome!
Transformers.
The next domino to fall is the Starsaber sword I mentioned earlier. With the introduction of the Minicon Super Sword came a small arc in the show, one where the Autobot Hotshot wielded the sword for a short time, defeating not only Starscream, but the entire Decepticon force multiple times. And during this arc, we see a brief interaction where Megatron states,
The warrior who is strong enough to take the Starsaber is certainly worthy of keeping it himself.
With some curious help, Starscream ends up being the rightful owner of the Starsaber, which causes a few things to occur.
At last, the Starsaber is mine once again!
First, the vindication he was seeking by obtaining a Minicon partner and one of the most powerful Minicon teams in the universe does not bring him Megatron's favor. In fact, it does the opposite, magnifying the wedge growing between them.
Now hand it over.
But you said I could keep it!
With the Starsaber in hand, he allows the power to go straight to his head. And who's to blame him? I would also probably go crazy if I had a literal lightsaber in my hands.
I am undeniably the most powerful warrior in the universe!
However, Starscream does himself no favors by flaunting his new power and looking down on his fellow Decepticons.
If anyone's to blame, I think it's you, Demolisher! You haven't been much help to us at all!
What did you say?
At this point in Starscream's story, his arrogance is what rules him, an arrogance that the ever-crafty and untrustworthy Megatron will use against him. Episode 17, Conspiracy, brings us to another turning point in his story, one of many turning points that we will see mold the Decepticon over time. Up till now, we've seen some frustrating interactions between the other Decepticons and Starscream, but nothing deep enough to question loyalties. Dissatisfaction and infighting are basically a requirement for being a Decepticon, so nothing really seems out of place yet. Especially in Armada, when Transformers change teams like a gym teacher in Dodgeball. So what happens in episode 17? Exactly what the episode is called, Conspiracy. Through careful planning, Megatron manipulates his own force to pressure Starscream into forking over the Starsaber.
I was just standing here, and Starscream attacked me from behind with a Starsaber!
With this in hand, Megatron begins a subtle but long-winded campaign against Starscream, throwing rocks at him, disciplining him specifically, and ignoring otherwise solid advice.
Scavenger has seen our base. He knows all about our operation. He'll reveal our position to the enemies.
And despite the treatment that he begins receiving, Starscream is still dedicated to his leader. With the brief phase of owning the Starsaber behind him, he continues to believe in the fight against Optimus Prime and his Autobots. That is, until Megatron goes too far. In episode 23, Rebellion, we see why Starscream's loyalty wavers, and it's nothing short of a good reason. After a battle gone sour in episode 22, Megatron covers up his own fears by taking out his anger on Starscream.
You're terminated.
Give me a break. Don't tell me he's going to exterminate his own soldier.
An important consideration about toxic leadership is that a leader plagued by insecurity will without a doubt hurt someone in the process. I've seen this firsthand in military leaders in the real world. Watching as a pathetic commander makes others feel worthless because of his own cowardice. So seeing Megatron reveal his own fear in the form of disciplining Starscream was all too familiar.
Are you too pathetic to even fight back? You're a disgrace to the Decepticon race, and you deserve to be destroyed.
Another turning point in Starscream's story. And who can blame him? How would you feel if you'd given everything you've got for your leader just to have him smash your face in after the fact, either physically or verbally? Megatron's outrage leads Demolisher, another Decepticon, to intervene.
Oh no, Starscream!
Whoa.
It is done. A punishment worthy of the crime.
Demolisher is a complex character in his own right, usually doing what's best to stay on Megatron's good side. But this situation leads him to save his comrade, which ends with Starscream taking off and leaving Demolisher contemplating the future of the Decepticons.
I have to do this on my own, Demolisher.
A beaten and humiliated Starscream, on the other hand, has a bit of an episode. The crash out that followed was reasonable, after being abused for no good reason.
No one humiliates me like that! No one!
Now seeing Megatron somewhat as an adversary, Starscream listens to the advice of Sideways, another fellow Decepticon. At this point, the audience doesn't know that Sideways is trying to cause a civil war in the Decepticon ranks, so his advice that Megatron is crazy and should be ousted from power doesn't feel that out of place. And Starscream, who knows how powerful he is both with Swindle and Starsaber, allows these thoughts to swirl. But where you might think that he immediately turns tail and trades sides is completely wrong. Listen to his own response to Demolisher after the ordeal.
There's gotta be a reason we fight. Because there's no point continuing unless there is. This war is over 10 million years old. In fact, I've been a warrior ever since my spark left the Iacon chamber, and I was merged into the army of Megatron. The only difference between me and an Autobot is the way we do battle and the code of the Decepticons. I guess I'm starting to get a little confused.
Confusion not necessarily rebellion. If their battle has lasted millions of years, why is it now, after so long serving Megatron, that he feels conflict in his spark? The answer would soon appear. After letting Sideways coax him further into a battle against Megatron, Starscream is beaten badly. Yet, he still doesn't leave. He remains in the Decepticon ranks for some time, and this is where his loyalty as a soldier would begin to betray him. A tragic loyalty.
We are soldiers sworn to obey Megatron. Capture the Minicons and return to Cybertron triumphant! I have absolutely no intention of disobeying Megatron.
Yeah, sure, I got it. I never once questioned your loyalty.
Starscream continues to fight on the side of the Decepticons until episode 33. The episode, labeled Sacrifice, brings Starscream face to face with Optimus Prime, who voices a question Starscream has already entertained. What will happen once the Autobots are defeated? What happens once Megatron is ruler of the universe? Perhaps not wishing to face the truth of what will happen to the Minicons after such a future comes to be, Starscream presses the attack. However, during his fight with Optimus, the Decepticons abandon Starscream to his fate. Here, he faces the reality of what happened. Megatron left him to face the entire Autobot force alone, and now he was paying for it, screaming out one of his most iconic lines in the entire show.
Why have you all abandoned me?
Transformers.
Upon his return to base, the Decepticons seem truly surprised that he's alive. They probably expected him to die or at the very least be captured by the hands of the Autobots. And Starscream's reaction to this is quite good, bashing Thrust, who closed the warp gate on him in front of everyone.
I won't listen to your lies anymore, Thrust.
Oh no, Thrust is getting trashed on.
I don't really care. Yeah, he deserves it too.
But now, the die has been cast. Starscream knows what's up, and he will not stand for it any longer. He begins to think about what Optimus stated about the Minicons, how they aren't just tools in their war, and this leads Starscream to begin caring for his own partner Minicons and the Starsaber more, a care that will deepen with time.
You three have also been damaged. This energy bath will fix you up.
Fearing for his own life and the lives of his Minicon partners, Starscream takes off, attacking Megatron and ditching his team. And this is where the best part of his story begins, when he defects to the Autobot side. The turncoat story of Armada Starscream is far more thought out than that of G1. That's not to be a jab in any way to the original series, it's just that the story of Armada gives Starscream far more depth to his betrayal than that of his G1 counterpart. Upon leaving Megatron, Starscream not only fights off the waves of his former allies, he tries to save the Autobots caught up in the fight, and when he does successfully reach the Autobot force, he is met with doubtful voices, especially from Hotshot, an Autobot he'd faced countless times in the past. From here, we would see a long back and forth confusion that would grow in the Decepticon's mind. Questions that came from exposure to Optimus and his men. Failure in the Decepticon ranks had awarded him with heavy scrutiny, lack of trust, and straight-up abuse. But seeing how Optimus treated the Autobots, loving them and doing whatever was best for them, brought further confliction to his mind.
I can understand why you don't trust me, but I really do despise Megatron now. But if you want to fight, bring it on.
During his time with the Autobots, he would prove where his loyalties lied, and that was with his sword pointed towards his former master, Megatron. We would see Starscream lead the Autobots into the Decepticon base, allowing for the rescue of a vast Minicon force. Starscream would show once again that his loyalty was not necessarily in freeing the Minicons and listening to orders like the other Autobots, but in settling his score with Megatron. Defeating his former master was his utmost obsession.
No! And don't try to stop me, Optimus!
This obsession, however, got in the way of Optimus's orders, leaving the fresh Autobot to simmer with indecision.
Time is running out for your decision, Starscream. Choose. Will it be your heart or your programming? Autobot or Decepticon?
There is no right decision!
Take your time, Starscream. Take your time.
As Starscream remained with the Autobots, we would see the deepening love for his Minicon partners. In episode 36, Mars, he convinces a neutral Minicon to fire on the Decepticon tidal wave in self-defense.
Fire! I said fire! We Autobots will protect you! The Decepticons will use you as a tool for war! essentially saving the Minicon from capture.
Characters that have multiple layers to their personality are some of the greatest successes of fiction. Villains that are formed from years of brutal betrayal often sit better with us than villains who are straight up evil. Perhaps it's because we want to give these characters the benefit of the doubt. We wish to understand why they do the things that they do. Remember how I mentioned that as a kid I saw Autobots and Decepticons as black and white? Starscream is without a doubt the gray in an otherwise segregated universe. It isn't my goal to continue explaining every second of Starscream's journey in the Armada story. I'll save you some of the details if you want to enjoy it yourself. But I believe now we have most of the context to continue with the main point of today's story.
Bringing down Megatron might be Starscream's personal mission, but that day, he showed us that he really cared after all. I believe that the day is coming soon when Starscream will join the Autobots. For good. Forever.
Starscream found himself in a particularly interesting position as the endgame portion of the show neared. At this point in the story, the chaotic evil known as Unicron had made himself known, and his appearance was sort of like the end times for the Cybertronian race. If he reached Cybertron, game over. Starscream, who had now been upgraded by the very same Unicron into Thundercracker, had a choice to make. Did he sit back and watch as a select few survived at Unicron's side, or did he make a stand to save everyone? By now, Starscream had proven, at least to the audience, that he cared for his Cybertronian brothers. Either Autobot, Decepticon, or Minicon. And when the final showdown between Megatron and Optimus Prime began, Starscream made his move.
I don't believe it! Starscream!
By intervening in this scene, Starscream battles against Megatron in Optimus's place. The long-awaited revenge that he's drooled over for most of the series is abandoned. Yes, Starscream gets his fight with Megatron, but not for petty revenge.
I've often wondered what it would be like to battle against you, Galvatron. But your words are stronger than your fighting abilities!
Everything he's endured, all of the abuse, being pushed to his limits, having to run from the family he'd known and trusted for so long, fractures that had split soldier from commander, once glossed over, now come into focus as he bears down against Megatron. Despite all of these wrongdoings, Starscream does what a hero would do. He risks his life to save the people that he loves. And in one beautiful moment, Starscream finally shows Megatron his loyalty in all its brilliance. A loyalty that no longer belongs to Megatron, but to the Cybertronian race as a whole.
Why did you let me run you through like that, soldier?
I remember. A very long time ago, I swore an oath to you, Galvatron, and I could never break that oath. But all of this could have been prevented if you only had given me some respect.
Of all the hate that Starscream could let spew from his mouth, he doesn't utter a single word that isn't true, and despite being on the edge of death, calmly tells Megatron why he's wrong.
Save your breath, Starscream.
I tried to gain favor from you, but nothing was ever good enough.
And his final action, his last chance at life, is spent so that Megatron might change. This rebellious Decepticon, whose loyalty, now shattered, stands to the end.
No matter how many battles I fought, you always found fault. Then I saw how Optimus treated his men, and I realized he was a leader of integrity, unlike you.
You were too weak to ever gain my respect.
None of that matters now. You must listen! Do as Optimus says and join forces with the Autobots, or else every last one of us is doomed! Please, sir, do it for me.
No, Starscream, don't!
It's time to finish this once and for all! Activate proton cannon! You're all mine, Unicron!
When Starscream dies, the message finally gets through Megatron's thick head. Join forces or die. By dying, Starscream sacrificed himself for a chance that everyone else would be saved. This was the monumental moment for me as a kid. Watching a character I had been interested in, but not necessarily on the side of, face Megatron and straight up die left its mark on me. This blasted Decepticon, this soldier, who only wanted to make his leader proud, ended up giving his life to save everyone he cared about. And because of his time as both an Autobot and a Decepticon, he became the perfect savior for his people. Without a doubt, Starscream is the most interesting character in Armada for me personally. Seeing a character blur the somewhat rigid lines of what was right and wrong was mind-boggling as a kid, and after reviewing the series as an adult, I wanted to speak my piece. If you've made it this far in my presentation, I'm glad you watched my rant. I am a Christian, and I'm going to finish up today's story with a correlation between fiction and religion, so if you head out, have a day worth remembering. Armada Starscream reminds me of the character Paul in the New Testament of the Holy Bible, a man who was incredibly dedicated to his religion. Paul was a Jew who grew up to be a Pharisee, an educated religious leader who followed God's commands to a T. However, once blinded on the road to Damascus, he encountered Jesus, the very person whose followers he was trying to destroy. After being blinded and taught about the truth of Jesus' sacrifice for humanity, Paul became dedicated to saving his fellow man, just like a certain Cybertronian. Thank you one more time for reaching the end of today's presentation. My name is Remington, and I like to yap about stories. If you did enjoy today's story, let me know if you've seen Transformers Armada. I'm curious just how many people in 2025 know of my favorite childhood Decepticon. But anyway, goodbye and God bless.